Hi, welcome to SGT University. I am Dr. Sonia from Faculty of Physiotherapy. Today we will be learning about pleural effusion. Normally the pleural space contains a small amount of fluid, that is 5 to 15 ml, which acts as lubricant that allow the pleural surface without friction. When there is an imbalance between the formation and absorption of fluid in various disease states in response to injury and in inflammation, both locally and systematically, fluid buildups in the pleural cavity, which is known as pleural effusion. Pleural fluid is produced from the systemic capillaries and absorbed into pulmonary capillaries. Lymphatics also play an important role in removing pleural fluid. Under the normal circumstances, the direction of pleural fluid flow is largely governed by the difference in hydrostatic pressure between the systemic and the pulmonary circulations. Pleural fluid exists in a dynamic equilibrium in which influx equals efflux, with approximately 1 liter of fluid traversing the pleural space in 24 hours. Pleural effusion develops whenever influx of fluid into the pleural space exceeds the efflux. According to the composition of the pleural fluid, pleural effusion classically are divided into two groups, transudates and exudates. A transudative effusion develops when there is an increase in the hydrostatic pressure or decrease in the oncotic pressure within the pleural microvessels. These imbalances result in the production of an ultrafiltrate fluid with low protein content across the pleural membrane. Exudate result from pleural disease, usually inflammation or neoplasia, that result in active fluid secretion or leakage with high protein content. An exudative effusion is the result of increased membrane permeability or defective lymphatic drainage. Any pulmonary or pleural process associated with inflammation can result in an exudative effusion. Symptoms associated with pleural effusion are most often due to the underlying disease process and not the effusion itself. Small pleural effusion can be entirely asymptomatic. Viral pleuritis and pulmonary infarction commonly are associated with pleuritic chest pain. Large effusion interfere with expansion of the lung and produce dyspnea, shortness of breath, and atelectasis. Detailed history of symptoms should be taken. For example, history of dyspnea, pleuritic chest pain, cough, fever, hematopathis, weight loss, trauma, history of cancer, and cardiac surgery. The patient history often helps to establish the diagnosis for pleural effusion or pleural inflammation. A history of congestive heart failure, liver disease, uremia, or malignancy can direct subsequent evaluation. The pain of viral pleuritis usually is preceded by several days of a typical viral prodrome with low-grade fever, sore throat, and other upper respiratory or constitutional symptoms. Physical findings depends on the size of the effusion but are often either dominated or obscured by the underlying disease process. On percussion, there occur dullness. On auscultation, breath sound are found decreased. There occur absent tactile firmitis. Other findings include ascites, increased jugular venous pressure, friction rub, unilateral leg swelling. With massive effusion, sign of mediastinal shift may be present. Chest X-ray. Blunting of either costopharyngeal angle is indicative of the accumulation of between 250 to 500 ml of fluid, 70 ml of fluid in the subpulmonic space without spillover can obliterate the posterior costopharyngeal sulcus. 170 ml is necessary to obscure the lateral costopharyngeal sulcus on an upright chest radiograph. 500 ml will obscure the diaphragmatic contour on an upright chest radiograph. 1000 ml of effusion reaches the level of the fourth anterior rib. With the CT scan, less than 10 ml and possibly as little as 2 ml can be identified. CT scan can distinguish between lung abscess and empyema. Diagnostic thoracocentesis is done. It is indicated if the effusion is clinically significant with no known cause. For this, patient should be in a sitting position, leaning forward over a spot. For the procedure of diagnostic thoracocentesis, informed consent from the patient should be taken. Clean the area with povidone iodine. Give the local anesthesia. Insert the needle below the scapula posteriorly through the 7th intercostal space and flexible catheter over the needle. Aspirate the pleural fluid. Objective of management are to treat the underlying cause, to prevent reaccumulation of fluid and to relieve discomfort, dyspnea and respiratory compromise, maintain oxygenation and facilitating drainage. Treatment of the underlying cause. Therapeutic aspiration is necessary in order to relieve dyspnea. For this, following precautions are to be followed. Removing more than 1 liter in one episode is inadvisable because it can result in an re-expansion pulmonary edema. Should never be aspirated to dryness before the exact etiology is determined. Tube thoracostomy, that is chest tube drainage, is given. Pleurodesis, an irritating substance, is inserted through a chest tube into the pleural space. The substance inflames the pleura and chest wall, which then bind tightly to each other as they heal. Pleurodesis can prevent pleural effusion from coming back in many cases. Pleural decortication is done to minimize fluid buildup in the lung. For this, breathing exercises and segmental deep breathing are given. To improve the airflow, various breathing exercises should be emphasized. To maintain the chest clear, various chest clearance techniques are given, which include percussion, vibration, force expiratory techniques, that is huff and cough. For the care of the patient on the chest tube drainage, care should be taken that the chest drainage system is placed below the level of the patient's chest. Emphasize on the expiratory positive pressure from the patient. This helps to push air and fluid out of the chest. For this, we give the incentive spirometer, cuff and Valsalva maneuver. We should also monitor the movement of fluid into the chest drainage with the cycle of respiration. During the inspiration, fluid move upward in the bottle. With expiration, fluid move downward in the chest drainage tube. While shifting or moving the patient from bed, always take care about the kinking of the tube and to prevent the dislodgement of the tube. So, today we covered the pleural effusion. In our next lecture, we will be learning about pneumonia. Till that time, keep learning, keep growing. See you next time.